Bobo, a wealthy bachelor, makes a reckless bet to marry an undesirable woman, never expecting to fall in love. But when the truth behind the bet comes out, hearts are shattered. Can love built on lies survive in a world of betrayal and redemption? One man must fight to reclaim the love he never knew he needed. The night buzzed with laughter, clinking glasses, and the hum of an expensive lifestyle. Bobo leaned back in his chair, swirling the champagne in his glass. His eyes drifted over the crowd gathered in his mansion, the elite of East Africa. Business moguls, musicians, actors, celebrities, and socialites paraded around in their designer outfits, displaying wealth and status like trophies. It was all so familiar. Bobo, a tall, handsome, 35-year-old Kenyan of Congolese descent, was used to this. As the CEO of one of East Africa's largest oil companies and a man with lucrative real estate ventures under his belt, he had more wealth than most could dream of. Yet, despite all the luxury, Bobo felt empty. There was a restlessness in his heart that even his success couldn't fill. "Bobo, you're too quiet tonight. You're thinking too much again," Safari's voice interrupted, bringing him back to the present. Bobo offered a small smile. "Just taking it all in. It's the same faces, the same conversations." Safari, a stout man with a mischievous glint in his eye, chuckled. "And yet you're still bored. What's wrong? None of these fine women catching your eye?" He glanced around at the women in the room, all flawlessly dressed and laughing too loudly at jokes that weren't funny. Bobo sighed. "It's always the same. They chase the money, not the man." Safari laughed, shaking his head. "Always so cynical. You think you're some kind of ladies' man, don't you? Like you can have any woman you want." "It's not about being a ladies' man, Safari. It's just reality. Success attracts people. Everyone wants something," Bobo said, his voice tinged with bitterness. "All right, then. If you're so sure of yourself, I have a bet for you," Safari said, leaning forward, his voice lowering. Bobo raised an eyebrow. "A bet? What kind of bet? You say you can get any woman to fall for you. How about this? I bet you can't marry a woman who's completely different from the ones you usually go for." "Different? What do you mean by different?" Safari's grin widened. "I'm talking about someone who isn't fine and petite. Someone who doesn't wear designer clothes or flutter around in high society. In fact, I saw a woman the other day, a baker. She's bigger than most and probably not someone you'd glance at twice." Bobo chuckled, amused. "So, you're challenging me to marry an overweight woman?" Safari nodded. "Exactly. But not just marry her. I bet you can't keep her as your wife for 6 months. If you can, I'll give you that prime piece of land in Kilimani you've been after." Bobo's eyes flashed. The land Safari referred to was worth millions, and he had been trying to acquire it for years. It was an offer too tempting to ignore. But beyond the prize, there was his pride. Safari's smugness was irritating, and Bobo never backed down from a challenge. "All right," Bobo said firmly. "You've got yourself a deal. But remember, you're going to regret underestimating me." Safari extended his hand, shaking Bobo's. "Good luck, my friend. You're going to need it." The next morning, as Bobo drove through the crowded streets of Nairobi, far from the familiar luxury of his world, the market was alive with vendors hawking fruits, vegetables, fabrics, and the scent of spices filling the air. This was not the kind of place Bobo usually found himself, but today he had a mission. Safari had mentioned a bakery in the heart of the market. After asking a few vendors, Bobo found it. A small wooden sign read Nikki's Bakery. He hesitated outside, unsure of what to expect. This wasn't just about winning a bet, he was stepping into unfamiliar territory. Pushing the door open, he was greeted by the warm scent of freshly baked bread and cakes. Behind the counter, A woman kneaded dough with confident hands. Her apron clung tightly to her curvy frame. This was Nicole. Her thick black hair was pulled back into a bun, and her round, kind face bore a gentle yet weary expression. She was nothing like the women Bobo usually pursued. She was real. No pretensions, no airs, just herself. Nicole looked up, surprised to see a man in an expensive suit standing in her humble bakery. She wiped her hands on her apron and offered a polite smile. "Good morning. Can I help you with something, sir?" Bobo flashed his most charming smile, feeling the weight of Safari's bet in the back of his mind. "I'm Bobo. I couldn't help but notice your bakery as I was passing by. It smells incredible in here." Nicole blinked, clearly taken aback by his polished appearance and unexpected compliment. "Thank you. What would you like to buy?" Bobo hadn't planned this far ahead. He hadn't come to buy anything, he was here to win her over. "I was wondering if you'd like to have dinner with me tonight?" he asked, trying to sound casual, though he felt a twinge of uncertainty. Nicole's eyes narrowed slightly as she folded her arms. "Dinner? With you?" Her voice was calm but laced with suspicion. Bobo nodded confidently, despite the awkward situation. "Yes. I'd love to get to know you better." Nicole studied him for a long moment, her skepticism clear. "You don't seem like the kind of man who would come to this part of town for dinner. Why are you really here?" Bobo paused. She was sharp, much sharper than he'd anticipated. Most women would have been flattered or flustered by his offer, but Nicole seemed unmoved. Deciding to lean into honesty, at least partially, he replied, "I saw your bakery and was curious. I won't lie, this isn't a place I'd usually come to. But something about you caught my attention." Nicole's expression softened slightly, though a hint of wariness remained. "I can't leave until my shift ends at 6. 6:30 then?" Bobo asked. Nicole hesitated, then gave a small, reluctant smile. "All right. 6:30. As Bobo left the bakery, his thoughts were muddled. This wasn't just a bet anymore. Something about Nicole intrigued him. She wasn't falling for his usual charm, and that strangely made him want to try harder. Bobo arrived at the bakery promptly at 6:30 that evening, feeling a strange nervousness he wasn't used to. Nicole emerged from the shop wearing a simple dress, her hair down in soft curls. She looked different from earlier in the day, still not like the glamorous women he was used to, but beautiful in a way that was quiet and unpretentious. As they drove through the city in Bobo's sleek black Mercedes, Nicole sat quietly, her hands folded in her lap. The silence between them was thick, and Bobo wasn't sure how to bridge the gap. This wasn't going to be as easy as he had thought. When they arrived at the restaurant, Bobo noticed that Nicole seemed uncomfortable with the opulence around her, the white tablecloths, crystal glasses, and waiters in suits. It was all a far cry from the cozy bakery she called home. "I don't usually eat in places like this," Nicole said quietly as they sat down, her eyes scanning the menu. Bobo smiled, trying to put her at ease. "That's all right. Tonight, the bill is on me." Nicole gave him a small, hesitant smile. "It's not the money. It's just, this isn't my world. I prefer something simpler." Bobo nodded, appreciating her honesty. The women he usually dated would have been showing off on social media by now, excited to be seen in such an expensive place. But not Nicole. She wasn't interested in any of it, and he found himself liking that about her. As the evening progressed, the conversation began to flow more easily. Nicole talked about her bakery, how she had started it with nothing after her father passed away, and how she had worked tirelessly to make it successful. Her passion for her work was evident, and Bobo found himself genuinely interested. "You've built something incredible, Nicole," Bobo said sincerely. "It's not easy to start from scratch and make something of yourself." Nicole shrugged, her expression turning slightly sad. I don't know if I'd call it incredible. People don't exactly respect me for it. They see my size first, judge me for that, and don't even bother to see what I've accomplished. It's hard sometimes. Bobo felt a pang of guilt. He had been one of those people, judging her before even getting to know her. He had come here for a bet, but now, listening to her, he realized there was so much more to her than he had expected. You shouldn't care what they think, Bobo said softly. You've done something most people could never do. That's impressive. Nicole glanced at him, surprised by his sincerity. You really think so? I know so, Bobo replied. For the rest of the evening, the conversation was easy, natural. Bobo found himself enjoying her company more than he had anticipated. She was funny, smart, and refreshingly real. By the time he dropped her off at her modest home, he realized he had genuinely enjoyed himself. As he watched her disappear into the house, Bobo sat in his car for a moment, thinking. This had started as a bet, but now it felt like something more, and that scared him. Over the next few weeks, Bobo visited Nicole's bakery almost every day. He brought her flowers, small gifts, and spent hours talking with her about her business. At first, Nicole was cautious, always waiting for the catch, but gradually, she began to let her guard down. Their relationship grew slowly, organically. Bobo found himself looking forward to his time with her. She wasn't like the women he had known, those who fawned over his wealth or tried to impress him. Nicole was real. She cared about her work, her family, and her simple life. For the first time in his life, Bobo started to see value in things beyond material success. But even as their bond deepened, Bobo was haunted by the bet. He knew he had to tell her eventually, but every time he thought about it, fear gripped him. What if she hated him? What if he lost her forever? He had never felt this way about anyone before, and the thought of losing her was unbearable. One evening, after they had spent the day visiting suppliers for her bakery, Nicole asked him, "Why are you doing all this, Bobo? Why me? You could have anyone." "I don't understand." Bobo looked at her, his heart racing. "I don't know. I didn't expect this either, but you make me feel like myself. You don't care about all the superficial stuff. You just care." Nicole smiled, though uncertainty still lingered in her eyes. "I've never had someone like you take an interest in me. It feels too good to be true sometimes." Bobo swallowed hard, guilt gnawing at him. He wanted to tell her the truth right then, but the words stuck in his throat. Instead, he took her hand and squeezed it gently. "It's real," he whispered. By the time a month had passed, Bobo knew he had fallen for Nicole. This wasn't just about winning a bet anymore. He had never felt this way about anyone before. She made him see the world differently, made him question everything he had once believed about success and happiness. When Bobo decided to propose, it wasn't for the bet. He wanted her in his life for real. He took Nicole to a quiet restaurant, away from the glitz and glamour, somewhere she would feel comfortable. After dinner, he got down on one knee and pulled out a small diamond ring. Nicole gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. "Bobo, what are you doing?" Bobo smiled, his heart pounding. "Nicole, I know this might seem sudden, but I've never been surer of anything in my life. I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Will you marry me?" Tears welled up in Nicole's eyes as she stared at the ring, then back at Bobo. "I don't know what to say. Are you sure, Bobo? Are you really sure?" Bobo nodded, his voice steady. "Surer than I've ever been." Nicole's hands trembled as she reached for the ring. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I'll marry you." The wedding was small and intimate, not the grand event Bobo's friends had expected. Nicole had insisted on keeping it simple, with just close family and friends. Nicole's mother, Mama Elsa, cried tears of joy as she watched her daughter walk down the aisle in a simple white dress. Bobo's heart swelled with emotion as he watched Nicole approach, looking more radiant than he had ever seen her. For a moment, everything felt perfect. But as the ceremony went on, Bobo couldn't shake the weight of his guilt. He had won her over, married her, but the secret of the bet still hung over him like a dark cloud. He knew it was only a matter of time before the truth came out. And when it did, he feared he would lose everything. The truth came out at a party, as most secrets do. It had been 3 months since the wedding, and Bobo and Nicole's life together was growing more stable, more real. They had started discussing plans to expand her bakery into multiple locations, and Bobo found himself enjoying his role as her business partner as much as her husband. But one evening, during a gathering with friends, Safari, drunk and careless, let the truth slip. "You know Bobo only married Nicole because of a bet, right?" Safari laughed, his words slurred. "It was all just a game at first. I never thought he'd actually go through with it." Nicole overheard the conversation from across the room. Her face went pale as the words sunk in. She stood frozen, the world spinning around her. Slowly, she turned to Safari, her voice trembling. "What did you say?" she whispered. Safari's laughter died instantly. He looked at her, realizing too late what he had done. "Nicole, it's not what it sounds like," he stammered. But it was too late. Nicole fled the room, tears streaming down her face. She couldn't believe it. Her marriage, her love for Bobo, it had all been based on a lie. She felt humiliated, betrayed, and utterly heartbroken. That night, Nicole packed her bags and left. When Bobo returned home and saw her suitcase by the door, his heart dropped. He ran to her, pleading, "Nicole, wait. Please, let me explain." Tears streamed down her face as she shook her head. "Explain what, Bobo? That my entire marriage is a joke. That I was just part of some bet. It started as a bet, but it's not a bet anymore," Bobo said desperately. "I swear I love you. I fell in love with you, Nicole. You changed me." Nicole's face crumpled as she choked back sobs. "How can I believe anything you say now? You lied to me, Bobo. You broke my heart." She left without another word, leaving Bobo standing alone in the empty house. In the weeks that followed, Bobo was a broken man. He couldn't focus on work, couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. All he could think about was Nicole, how he had hurt her, how much he needed her in his life. The land in Kilimani didn't matter anymore. His wealth, his success, it was all meaningless without her. He tried everything to win her back. He sent her flowers, wrote her letters, tried to call her. But Nicole wouldn't respond. She had moved back in with her mother, Mama Elsa, who was furious when she found out about the bet. "You are not a man, Bobo," Mama Elsa spat when he came to her house one day, begging to speak to Nicole. "You toyed with my daughter's heart. You will never see her again." Bobo left, defeated. But he refused to give up. He knew he had to make things right, no matter how long it took. One day, after weeks of trying, Nicole finally agreed to see him. They met at her bakery, the place where it had all started. Nicole stood behind the counter, her face pale and drawn. The warmth that had once been there was replaced with sadness. "I don't know if I can ever forgive you, Bobo," she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. "You broke my heart. How can I trust you again?" Bobo knelt before her, his voice thick with emotion. "I know I hurt you, Nicole. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. But I love you. I never expected to fall in love with you, but I did. You changed me. Please, give me a chance to make this right." Nicole looked at him, her eyes filled with tears. "I don't know if I can," she said. Bobo's heart sank, but he nodded. "I'll wait for as long as it takes. I'll do whatever it takes." It took time, but slowly, Nicole began to soften. She saw the genuine change in Bobo, the way he had humbled himself, the way he was willing to do whatever it took to earn her forgiveness. In the end, it wasn't grand gestures that won her back, but the sincerity he showed. He proved that his love was real, that it wasn't just about winning a bet anymore. One evening, as they sat together in her bakery, just the two of them, Nicole spoke quietly. "I'm willing to give us another chance. But I need you to understand something, Bobo. Love is not a game. If you hurt me again, there won't be a third chance." Bobo nodded, his heart swelling with relief and gratitude. "I swear, Nicole, I will never take you for granted again." They renewed their vows in a simple ceremony, surrounded by close family and friends. There were no cameras, no media, just love. This time, their marriage was built on something real, something lasting. Nicole opened her dream bakery in a prime location in Karen, with Bobo by her side, supporting her every step of the way. The scars of the past were still there, but together, they had found a way to heal. As they stood together at the grand opening of the bakery, watching customers stream in, Nicole smiled up at Bobo. "I never thought I'd be standing here," she said softly. Bobo smiled back, taking her hand. "Neither did I. But I'm glad I am." For the first time in his life, Bobo felt truly content. He had won more than just a bet, he had won the love of a woman who had changed him forever. Thank you for joining us on this thrilling journey. If you enjoyed the story and want more twists and turns, don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned to Echoes of Africa.